texture like sun lays me down. With my mind she runs throughout the night. No need to fight, never a frown, with golden brown. Every time, just like the last, on her ship, tied to the mast, to distant lands, takes both my hands, never a frown, with golden brown.
Well, I've always been a football supporter since school, and I just got fascinated by the clothes and fashion. And I used to go in the 70s to Forest and see all that was a standing open ends, and next minute what's all the fuss about? Everyone's going hammering tongs at it, and I noticed all the different clothes and fashion. I thought, because it gave you a bit of a buzz, like, and just got hooked as a young kid, and I started going to, as it happens, a few Leeds games. They were big in the 70s, and I noticed the different cultures and the way different people dress from different areas. Leeds would start wearing like Slazenger jumpers and all that. Forest started doing the same sort of thing. I was more into that. That fascinated me more. Opposed to that, I went into violence. You wanted to be someone who's part of a gang. There was who had the smartest clothes, and then there was who's going to be who was the hardest, and it was backing your mates sort of. In them days, we couldn't really afford a lot of the clothes. 16, 15, 17, we didn't have the money. And we used to do the sports shops. I'm not proud to say it, to be honest with you, but we did do a bit of that. But it was all part and parcel of getting the stuff. We wanted to be the smartest lads, and we didn't have the money in them days. And that's to get the clothes. That's what we had to do. It was in London. It was they called it casuals. In Leicester, they called it trendies. In Nottingham, they called it shadies. In Liverpool, it was scallies. The Manx were just Manx. You know. There was a different name for everything, but overall it's become casual now. It is casual. Every little town used to have a different name for what it was. It's that lasted, most of it's gone 30 years now. I said to the young Forest kids now, it's not worth it, you know, cameras and, you know, just for a bit of a punch-up. It's not what we had in the day. You get to prison for not even throwing a punch nowadays. It's like a bug, it's like a disease. You can't help it, it's like drugs. It's drawn to you, it's hard to get out of it once you're into it. But I don't like being in a big, large group. I don't like groups nowadays because, you know, it was all about being in a group. Now I don't, because I could get drawn to it. I don't want to get into it anymore. If I just got to football, I've never got in trouble with the police. You know, I'm like 39 years of age. I thought, if I don't pack it up now, I'm never going to get out of it. And I watched England in my prison cell, and I thought, what am I doing here? For my family more than anything as well. Going to prison at 39 years of age and seeing my mum and dad, you know, suffering. You know, I've got a lot of good friends through football, and I like going to other cities now and reminiscing and mixing with the lads I used to fight with. And I could go for a drink anywhere in the country, except probably Sunderland and Derby, because they still don't like me so much. But I go anywhere, and you know, you're guest of honour, and it's great. I'm 47 this year, you know what I mean? So it's just, I'm glad we was part of it. It was just a game to us, really. It was just a bit of sport, a bit of fun.
I'm old school, yeah, go back to the early 60s. Manchester United, but in them days City were a big threat as well. And after what, 30, 40 years, City are a threat again. So I'm glad City are a threat, you know, rather than the Scousers. I was fascinated with the fashion at first, but I was too young to get involved. 68, 69, when the skinheads, we didn't call them skinheads, we call them boneheads, or baldies. And then 69, they got stamped as skinheads. I wanted to be one, but I just wasn't old enough, still at school, went in detention centre. And when I come out, I had a bit of an angry attitude, so it was 1970 now. I got a pair of Doc Martens, braces, Grandad t-shirt, and I went to Derby. It was called the Watney Cup final. And there I witnessed my first violence that I could not really get involved in, but it was intoxicating, just being there. And what I was scared of, truthfully, was going down. Because in them days, if you went down, the boot went in. And in them days, a lot of them wore steel toe caps. And I've known lads who get a good booting or a good kicking at a football game and they'll never go to a game again. And I was hooked all the way through the 70s on football violence. In the 80s, we made money out of football. We became grafters, really. So we'd use football as a good excuse to turn up in towns, rob tills, pickpockets, snatch money from the turnstiles, the bars inside the ground. And quite truthfully, we liked doing that because it'd go in the papers. But we was always after money in the 80s, especially with the casual clobber, you know, the clothes. Even though we used to rob them and sell them and keep them, if you've seen an item, sometimes you break your own bank for it. And then within a week or two, it's ripped a foot, you know, from fighting at matches. One in France, 77, first time in Europe, really. About 2,000-3,000 United men. And we were used to going in opposition's ends, mob rule running in. But really, when we've got into the French section, we didn't really know it was family and this and that. And what happened in France, there was a big rush down to the where the field is, and the fences were very high. So the people who were trying to escape were going up the fences, but when they got to the top they were loose, so they were falling down. And there's some terrible injuries. And then that's the first time I thought, hang on, innocent people here can get caught up in things like this. The organised hooligans, they like to fight with each other and try and organise it so it's in a space away. So it's a fair kind of fight. But even then I've seen a lot of innocent people who are just caught up in the crush. Either get knocked over by cars, into buses. I can't say it got rid of what I was doing, because we made a good living for ourselves. And through football, going into Europe and making money, we ended up at the Olympics in Korea. We ended up in Japan. We ended up on Caribbean cruises, robbing them and everything. Didn't matter, we'd done a lot of jail in Europe. You know, spent 10 years of my life in jail. No, I've not really got any regrets.
Alright, Pennant here, on team 46, West Ham United. The firm we run with was the ICF, and I learned it at a very young age. It was before Britain was multicultural, and being a black kid in a white town, you know what I mean? I quickly, easily stepped into the gang culture thing, you know, because it kind of like a family. Everyone tells you the characteristics of a gang culture is family, brotherhood, camaraderie, and everything else. And the nation and the world was in the peace and love movement, you know. It was a backlash to the culture at the time, which was the hippie culture, because it was a time of the Vietnam War, and you're always getting nature opposites, don't you, you know what I mean? So this aggressive, violent, aggressive street culture come up in Britain. What suited me was an aggressive culture, but the streets were aggressive at the time, pretty much similar to today, because once society found out what was going on and stamped down on it in the streets, where could the youth mushroom legally, you know, gather legally, you know, in large groups without being, you know, swamped on by the police behind the goal football matches. Youth started gathering, they never did before. And the casuals fashion really come with another game with the youth generation. I remember the casuals, first seeing the casuals. At the time, Britain was great. It was a rich time for diverse cultures. Because at the time you had every culture going. Normally it's just one culture for that summer, and a rival culture. This time you had a melting pot of rival mods, the second generation of skinhead, you had new romantics, you had punk. It's like 5 different cultures under the radar of them all, becoming casual. But it really come with a young group. You got to think a kid on the terraces that go with his dad and his uncle at 8, 9, 10 years old with his parents. He's only seen violence. So when they come at 13, 14, 15, when they start going to their own mates and go without their parents to football, all they've seen in their life on the terraces, going with their parents as an innocent kid, is football violence when unchecked. So they quickly move into that. I call them Thatcher's children. Yeah, that's quite different to us. When we come in as a movement, they come in as a way of life. If you look at the time between something like 77 and 82, that period, when the gates were down because of the trouble, there was only a male age group of 12 to 25 going to football. And like a day there's women and different groups, middle classes and everything else. There's only that working class youth movement culture going to the football, because you've got to think the East End and that tough image with the Krays and, you know, the M8 flight jackets they was wearing, the Fred Perrys and, you know, DMs and that chunky look, all part of that Mako East End look. And all of a sudden you've got these waif kids coming through with Packer Max and trainers and the girly hair, flick hair, you know? And it was like a boy band, you know what I mean? And what happens, like any fashion, it drags the mainstream, right? And we was the mainstream, you know? We were the old dinosaurs, the top boys, you know? Everyone's getting into it, you know? So in our world, we was big players. You know, we were like film stars in this world of football miners back then, you know? The casual wasn't into the music, it was a football thing. And this style of dressing, you know what I mean? Said football without any colours.
I think it where I started going to football independently away from my parents and what have you in 1980. I was 16-year-old, so in them days it was sort of fight or fly. Everywhere you went, there were a lot of trouble. The police hadn't really got you under wraps and what have you, so everywhere we went, everyone seemed to want to have a pop at you. So I probably got more experience in one season as an hooligan, or a potential hooligan, than young ones get 9-10 years at football. It's in your blood. I think what hooligans get tarred with, that they don't care about game. It's a misconception that people think that football hooligans are just in it, they're mindless morons and they don't like football. Violence was a part and parcel of it, but first and foremost it was a football team wanting to win, because it's like a drug, football violence. Once you're in it and you're in it big time, it's very hard to get out. And I thought to myself, if I carry on with this, I'm going to end up losing my liberty, and I don't want to see my kids growing up without their dad. And don't get me wrong, there's been times when I've been in the wrong place, wrong time. In the 70s it was sort of free for all, anybody could cop for it. Well, certainly in the early 80s when football firms proper got together, so sort of 80s casuals came in and they were a bit of a code of conduct, and you know who lads were because how they dressed. A Sheffield United lad got 6 years last week. The fight against Middlesbrough last year, they threw a bottle and he's got 6 years. So a lot of people out of Sheffield don't realise the intensity of hatred between two sides. It's proper hatred. It's a really intense derby. There were a few times when I went to England and they were all at each other. I thought, fuck this. Derby were fighting with so and so, Leeds were fighting with this. It was pathetic. Like, you're all English, and because there's nobody else to fight with, they're all sniffed up. They end up fighting with each other, which to me, I'm English, I don't want to fight with a fella. It's not a game worth getting into. You can't really call it fear, because adrenaline takes over when there's I mean, my biggest buzz is when we were outnumbered, and a lot of people think you're warts and what have you, but I used to love it when it were on top and said it was 10 of you and 30 of them. And it was bigger buzz because you got no to lose and you had to stand together. It's like a hull. I got slashed at hull and I got captured on the floor, and I could steer them carving him up, and I could hear my clothes going, and I think, I'm going to be in bits here. It was a thing with sort of mid-80s, early 80s, where they cut your clothes up. Football's done, it's finished, you've missed boat.